was like a kind of a sort of old soul review song or something, you know, it had that kind of energy to it.
Another of those arrangements, really, which sort of brought together all the different ideas and themes that Led Zeppelin majored on, you know, shifting in moods and tempos, and very exciting and interesting arrangement, I'd say.
It's one of the highlights of the first album, but then what isn't, really.
In the years since the album's release, it has become regarded as one of the most important and influential debuts in modern music. It not only established Led Zeppelin as a major act, it also arguably revolutionized the emerging genre of rock music.
It's like a quantum leap in kind of rock. We're suddenly out of the 60s, tinny, trebly kind of, you know, swinging London pop sound into this kind of heavy 70s blues rock feel, just instantly. You know, it's like goodbye to the swinging 60s. It's this, that to me is kind of like where the 70s starts.
Their debut album's success ensured that Led Zeppelin instantly became a headline act, and during 1969, the band embarked upon a hectic schedule that included 4 American and 3 European concert tours. In between shows, the band would spend odd days in various recording studios, working on their second record. Despite the intense schedule, the group's second LP, Led Zeppelin II, was released a mere 9 months after the first.
Led Zeppelin II probably is the greatest hard rock album ever made. You know, it's, you know, just it's taking what the band did on the first album and really turning it into their own style. They're absolutely making it their own, if you like. It's saying, you know, we're gonna kind of take the blues, but we're gonna make it even more powerful and even more confident, and we are going to create the sort of the ultimate heavy track in Whole Lotta Love.
They were possibly treading on thin ice there, because, I mean, it was actually another one of their sort of thefts, if you like, because I think that they sort of realised, for example, that back in 1965, the Small Faces did a number called "You Need Lovin'."
One of the Small Faces fans was a guy called Robert Plant, who would follow him about everywhere, and he was like a lot of teenagers at that time. He was, you know, absolutely taken by American R&B music, and a lot of the bands who were forming at that time, that was their staple diet. That's what you did. You formed a band and you played American R&B music. The Small Faces were obviously no exception to that rule. They were mods who had become this premier mod band of England, really. One of the songs that they loved was a Willie Dixon tune called "You Need Loving."
You got yarning and I got funny. Baby, you look so sweet and cunning.
And they kind of took that and made it into their own, and it's you can hear it on their first album. Well, the way Marriott sings it, there's a very famous bit where he does he sings "You Need Loving" in a very kind of unique manner.
Woman, you need a love,
cut to America 6 years later, 7 years later, and Steve Marriott said he was driving around America. He was living in America at the time. He was driving around and he turned on the radio and he heard this tune. And he thought, God, that sounds familiar. And then realised that it was Little Percy Plant singing just like he did on the first album. But the great thing about Steve Marriott was that instead of thinking, God, he's completely ripped me off here, he was just going, Percy, you little bastard, go on, son, go on. So he kind of understood it in that sense of something probably which wasn't theirs to begin with, because that song is credited to Marriott and Lane on the first album. And even though they did make some adjustments, you know, the way that Led Zepp did it was probably in the same manner, except Led Zepp probably made a lot more money out of it than the Small Faces ever did.
It just remains fantastically powerful and also extraordinarily sort of daring, you know, to kind of hook you in with this phenomenal riff, the sort of ultimate rock uber riff, really, and then to just space out in this kind of mad kind of, you know, bells, drums, theremin kind of, you know, acid rock way. You know, that took some balls.
A Whole Lot of Love was released as a single in America, and by January 1970 had reached number 4 in the Billboard charts. Led Zeppelin II also contained the beginnings of Robert Plant's obsession with the fantasy writer J.R. Tolkien, a theme that would be developed more extensively on later albums. One example of this lyrical approach could be found on track 7 of the record, Ramble On.
Ramble On, to me, is one of the most appealing tracks, and I do think that's one of the many examples of how Led Zepp used dynamics very effectively.
It's just brilliant. I mean, it combines the acoustic with sort of electric Zeppelin. It's the dynamics of the song, that light and shade thing that Page was so obsessed with attaining with the group. It's all there in that track.